A new bill is being proposed that could change how the State Investment Council handles the $30 billion of New Mexicans' tax dollars that are invested every year. The bill proposes to add a couple more seats to be appointed by the legislative branch, as well as hiring oversight for management. It would drastically redefine the role of the state investment officer. Senator Tim Keller of Albuquerque explains.
In summary, the bill does basically four things. It's going to add a couple of seats to each one of our state investment fund boards, and one of which is appointed by the House and one is appointed by the Senate. And that's going to give us a little more diversity of interest on each one of the boards. And that's very similar to a bill that was run last year that was actually vetoed. But this one has some compromises in it, and hopefully I believe the governor is going to be okay with this version. Now, the bill does three other things, and one of them is it takes away the direct relationship between the state investment officer and the governor, and basically just says that the state investment officer is appointed by the state investment council as opposed to the governor. And it also says that any hiring of third-party contractors or consultants has to be approved by the respective investment board. Currently, the state investment officer can do that by themselves. So what it's really doing is it's separating oversight from management. And right now, all of those powers are rolled up into the state investment officer. So this bill would also fairly drastically redefine the role of the state investment officer as just a manager of funds, as opposed to someone who reports directly to the governor and someone who also has responsibility for hiring and firing all third parties.
Even with the shift of power, the majority of appointments will still come from the executive branch. This is a compromise from the last bill that was vetoed by Governor Bill Richardson. In return, the bill requires appointees to have at least 10 years' experience in investment or finance.
The state investment funds do is fairly complex, and I think it requires a certain level of experience to provide adequate oversight. And this bill would ensure that, but it would also, as is consistent with most boards, the majority of the members would be appointed by the governor.
Our state funds have underperformed compared to the market. Senator Keller says this is due to lack of oversight, accountability, and expertise.
Performance has been a real problem for us. We might be on an absolute basis, up over the last 6 months, but relative to our peers, we're always in the last quartile of performance, and we have been for the last 3 years and 5 years. So part of the reason why I'd like to add some expertise on the board is to help with that as well, because not only do we have some conflict of interest issues, but I believe we also have performance issues. We have folks who are overseeing private equity investments and hedge fund investments who have zero professional experience in either of those asset classes.
The State Investment Council issued a transparency and disclosure policy that, among other things, bans the use of placement agents, as well as prohibits campaign contributions during and 2 years after any investments or contracts. Senator Keller says the policy is good short-term, but it doesn't address the structural problems within the SIC.
What they did not address, and they really can't because it's in statute, is right now we do have an inherent conflict of interest set up where we have a board that oversees an investment fund that does not directly oversee what the investment officer does. So right now, responsibility for oversight is mixed with responsibility for management, and that's a structural problem that my bill would hopefully address.
Senator Keller says this bill is very different from the last one that was pocket vetoed by Governor Richardson. This bill is being worked on in collaboration with the governor, and the senator believes it will pass.
I've been working with the governor, and he's been very open and helpful, actually, on this. So I believe, just given what's happened, I think the whole public sector realizes that we need some changes here. And I frankly have assurances from him that we'll work together on the details and that he'll be supportive of these measures.
For KSFR News, I'm Rachel Kennedy.